Hello friends, we are here today in Hebrews chapter 4. So what was happening in the last chapter is they were talking about God's rest. And he was saying those with faith in the wilderness, when they were able to trust in God, they were able to enter into the promised land. And God was calling the promised land my rest. I want to stop right here and just say that I love this picture of being with God, being one with God, him calling it his rest. I love this picture. I love the idea of God being our rest. You know, I remember hearing a comedian a long time ago talking about how sleep is sometimes the most important thing. Like if you're in the middle of the night and you're certain that somebody's breaking into your house to steal everything you have and to cause you harm, you might wake up in the middle of the night and then you're like, oh, but the wet bed is just so nice and warm, and you just go right back to sleep. And this morning I had to wake up because my daughter wanted a bottle, and I was just thinking, all I want is to go back to sleep. There's nothing in the world more sweeter than that sleep. He is saying, I want you to enter my rest. At that time, in the wilderness, after they had been led out of Egypt, they sent spies into the land to check it out, and 2 of them had faith. And at that point, they said, should we go in? Should we not go in? And the 2 that had faith said, yeah, we should do it. This is God's plan. We know that God can do all. Let's go into the land. This is our promised land. But everybody else said, no, we can't. It's too much. It won't work. And at that point, God said, that's it. All of you that didn't have faith at this point, you are not going to enter into the promised land. And basically, they had to wait years and years until basically all those people died, and they never got to see the promised land. Now, at some point in between there and when they all died, I'm sure they're all thinking like, okay, we can trust you now. But there was like a cutoff point. They said that day, we do not trust God, and God said, all right, then you're not going to enter the promised land. Except for Joshua and Caleb, who lived longer, and so they were able to enter the promised land. And he's drawing this distinction between that and what we're going through, and he's saying there is also a day, a cutoff day, and that cutoff day is today. And he starts quoting the psalm where he says, if you hear the word of the Lord, don't harden your hearts toward it. The word of God, it's sharper than any two-edged sword. It's able to divide between soul and spirit, between joint and marrow. It's saying that when you hear the word of God, it's so sharp that you have to make a decision. You have to say, I'm either going to follow this or I'm going to reject it. So obviously, we're supposed to accept the word of God. If you hear God tugging at your heart, don't harden your heart. Follow it. Trust in it. He makes a small analogy about how Jesus is greater than the Sabbath. The Sabbath was set up because God rested on the 7th day when he was finished with all of his works. And he's saying right now, Jesus paid it all. I'm starting to begin a song. Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe. Sin has left a crimson stain, and he washed it white as snow. He's saying God did all the works, and now you can rest in him. You can have that rest today, because there was different levels. When they were trusting Moses, there was a part where they were brought out of Egypt, And then there was the part where they're in the desert, and then there's the part where they go into the promised land. And he's saying, we are now in the desert stage right now, but this is the time that you need to choose God. You know, you can enter into this rest today in the same way that Joshua and Caleb did back in the desert. So the rest of this chapter, he goes on to talk about the high priest. You know, it's going to be the beginning of next chapter, so we'll talk about it more tomorrow. But the high priest, he's talking about how Jesus is the greater high priest. That is Hebrews chapter 4. Have a great day. Bye.